What is up, music lovers? The other day, I was just checking out some YouTube, checking some mixing tips, music production tips, the usual. And I saw this atrocious mixing advice that really grinds my gears. I mean, I've seen it on a lot of different channels by now. I've seen it on Instagram, I see it everywhere. And it's just bad. And it annoys the hell out of me. So let's get to the video.
This is one of the most simple but effective mixing tips I've ever used in under 60 seconds.
So I mean, don't get me wrong, I do understand that this is like a short video. However, the way this is framed, it makes it seem like it's some generally good advice, something that you use maybe most of the time or at least a lot of the time, and it's really not.
So I throw an EQ on the kick drum and I cut 80 Hertz by about 3 dB. And then I do the opposite on the bass. I boost 80 Hertz by about 3 dB. I'm creating just a little bit of room for that bass to sit in the mix and making sure that kick drum is out of the way.
Yeah. Okay, so this is just one iteration of this technique. I've seen it applied and I've actually used it in other elements like, guitar and piano. You can maybe boost the guitar at 1K and then lower the piano at 1K. The main problem is that it really isn't generally good advice. Reason number one, you're changing the sound of the kick. What if the sound of the kick is actually sounding fine? What if it's sounding good in the context of the mix? Reason number two, you're changing the sound of the bass. What if the bass sounds fine? Do you want to change the sound of the bass just for no reason? I sure wouldn't. Reason number three, it really depends on the context. Let me explain. For example, maybe your kick was already too thin. Maybe your bass was already too bassy. Maybe you want both of them to kind of gel together and give like this really thick bass sound, which would be pretty useful, for example, in hip hop, which is the genre that I mix the most. Reason number four, it doesn't really present this in a way that it's like if you want some extra separation from your bass and your kick, which is something that I see mixing engineers and producers obsess over. Man, I really don't like that much separation. Like, why do you want to hear all the instruments so clearly all the time? I want them to mix together. I mean, I could go into 1,000 different reasons why this might be some bad advice for you or it's your specific mix or whatever.
Out of the way. And this is what it sounds like.
Now, I'm really not an expert on rock music or mixing rock music, but the mix did sound good to me. Okay, so that's fine. I don't know if it sounded better before or after the EQ moves that he made, because I didn't hear the before and after. He didn't show it to us. However, what I noticed from this mix is that with the EQ, the bass sounds, at least to me, in the right spot for bassiness, for sub level. Also, the kick drums seem to sound good because it's a really clicky sound that has to cut through the mix, the dance mix with the distorted guitars and all of that, which is really typical for metal mixes. So in this particular case, before he applied the EQ, probably the kick was a bit too boomy, a bit too subby, and the bass was maybe a bit lacking in terms of weight. So these EQ moves seem to make sense in this particular context. But let me tell you, most of the time I'm actually going to show you. I mean, of course, I'm mixing a different genre. Now I'm also going to oversimplify it for the sake of the video, but in general, you boost what makes it sound better and you cut what makes it sound worse. That's pretty much it for EQ. As long as you're not EQing in solo, you shouldn't really care that, oh, I'm boosting the 2K in this instrument and also I boosted 2K in the other instrument. Now they're gonna compete. Are you listening? Are they competing? If they aren't competing, What's the problem? Maybe they were both lacking in that area, and the EQ helped both instruments. Maybe the whole mix that didn't have a lot of 2K, so now it sounds better because you have two instruments that have a lot of 2K. But listen, this isn't supposed to be a shade for this guy, this isn't supposed to be offensive or anything. I've seen some of his other content and he actually gives some good advice. I just want to push back on this advice because I've seen it a lot, and this is actually something that got in my way as a mixing engineer when I was starting out. As a beginner, I actually took this advice, I mean not really for kick and bass, but for other instruments, and the more I got experience with mixing, the less I do it. I pretty much never do it nowadays, and when I do it, it's more of coincidence. I don't really think of it this way. I think it's a really bad approach to EQ and a bad approach to clarity, if you even want that, which I think is overrated. So yeah, it's nothing personal. I actually like some of the content by this channel. I just wanted to push back on this bad advice. Subscribe to the channel for more content. If you want to support the channel, links will be in the description. You can also book one-on-one lessons with me, so you can have guidance every step of the way. The original video will be in the description, so you can check it out.